Hi and welcome to the inaugural episode of Compton Goes Pro. My name is Dan Hostetler. I'm the editor-in-chief of ISO 1200 Education and a portrait photographer myself. For this show, I will act as a co-host by serving as the moderator during the talk segment with Compton. Also, sometimes I will play devil's advocate. I will dispute some of the statements in order to dig deeper and ask questions to provoke a discussion. Let us see how this will play out. During the Q&A section, I will be responsible for your questions. So we already got quite a few of them via the online forum, but please feel free to use the chat box below for submit your live questions right away and now. This show's topic is about Compton's backstory and finding his niche. So please submit questions along this outline. If you do it live, please make a mark with a Q so we actually see that's a question we can take up in the Q&A segment. One last thing, this episode will be about 45 to 60 minutes long. And now, without any further ado, let me welcome the protagonist of this show, Compton Harry.
Hello.
Hey, Compton.
How are you?
Nice having you here. How are you doing?
I'm great. Thanks, Red. Great. Excited.
Perfect. Just one thing for the beginning. I'm very sorry, but the focus seems to be on your microphone and not on your face. I'm really sorry.
That's better.
Perfect. Now,
Perfect.
now we are hopefully kind of both in focus. Cool. So thanks for being here. And let's start off because you're actually the protagonist. So I am the feeder of the questions. So let me switch the layout because, you're the main host and guest. So that's the way it should be. Before we start, let me dig in just in one question, right?
Yeah.
So please tell me about your current family and life situation. Are you single?
No, I'm actually engaged. I've been engaged for, I think, let me get this right, about 8 years. And
long time.
yeah, it's been a long time.
Congratulations.
And I've also got a 5-year-old boy who's called Kobe. So yeah, that's my current family life situation. I also do have 6 sisters and 1 elder brother as well.
Wow. Okay. Big family from your side, plus kind of obligation towards your situation, right? That's why I wanted to ask you in the very beginning, because it's kind of a different setup than if you would be single or just responsible for your and on your own. So that's why
100%.
my very first question. Okay, cool. Okay, let's start with a very obvious question. Why did you start with photography at all? Not how, but why? I mean, what was kind of the driver, right?
Long story short, I actually bought my camera to do photos and videos because back in 2014, 2015, I was heavily into basketball. So I initially bought my camera to take photos and videos of my basketball games, to create highlight reels for YouTube as well as for scouts. And that's where the love and the passion came from. And once I got the camera and I started taking photos, unfortunately there wasn't anyone there to take photos while I was actually playing sometimes. So it then became difficult to actually get those photos and videos. So what I then did was, when I wasn't playing, I will then get behind the camera and do photos and videos of the team that was playing at the time. And I kind of started to enjoy it a little bit. And and that led to then me start doing a lot of like family photos, family portraits, family events. And that became sort of like the starting point for getting into photography.
Right. I understand that. We talked privately about that also several times. But what I understand that was kind of the necessity based on your wanted to having your basketball photography done or videos
Yeah.
clips. But is that the actual driver that's kind of, well, as simple as that? Let me put it this way.
It's as simple as that. There is no
Cool.
I was born with a camera in my hand, and it just happened, because I was born with a camera in my hand, or I wanted to, or someone gave me a camera for my first when I was 5, or
Right.
it just
Cool.
kind of happened that way. Yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong, as simple as that, because sometimes it's really like people are thinking about it for like 15 years and then crossover starting da, 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 da. So that's perfect.
No.
So that's simple in a way. I hope you understand what I mean, right?
Yeah, 100%. Like there's no long story. That's why I say short story. Yeah. So perfect.
Perfect. Cool. Okay. So you started out with your own necessity. You kind of diverted into the wedding photography, obviously. Okay. So, but as always, the appetite comes with the eating, right? So, when did you really realize that you want to pursue photography as a career? Because we know of kind of a few photographers that, side hustle, etc. But making the jump or the leap of faith, when did it come? When did that when did this come?
Yeah, so this started pretty much probably about 2 years. So 2 years into starting and getting going properly with it, I was looking at it from then. So this was back in 2016, 17, where I was like, okay, maybe I can turn this from a side hustle into into an actual career. So since that day, at that time, I've been pursuing this journey of becoming a professional photographer, a full-time professional photographer. I actually tried to do it back in 2019, where I got my very own studio for the first time. Heavily invested a lot of money and a lot of time into that space, and unfortunately, it didn't work out. So it was back to the drawing board, and at the beginning of the first wave of the pandemic, I lost that studio, which I was visibly upset about. I wanted to give up photography altogether because I felt like I'd failed. And that wasn't necessarily because I wasn't enjoying it anymore. It was just because it became too much of a chore running a business, as well as working a full time job, as well as having a very young family at the time. My little boy was just turned 1. No, sorry, just turned 3. Sorry. So he was, in terms of childcare, etc. It was becoming a lot to balance everything.
Right.
So
Okay. Let me switch back to, or let's go back to 2019, opening the studio. Just just as a side information, right?
Yeah.
So it got too much, and it's kind of you had to shut it down. You were still in the state, like doing your kind of photography. So before you started then to do your lifestyle photography as a side hustle, right? So it's
Yes.
kind of before the transition. So what happened?
COVID, as well as business slowed up really, really quickly. The first 6 months, I was pretty busy, at least 4 or 5 shoots a week. Everything was running really nicely, ticking over. Then suddenly everything sort of starts to dry up. So all the jobs starts to dry up. So I ended up doing a lot of the work that I was doing during the last 6 months of that were all free, or basically portfolio building sessions. So
Right.
I would invite models, makeup artists to come into the studio and work on shoots with me. So it wasn't paying the bill, obviously, doing it that way. So sooner or later, every single savings that I had saved up from the first initial 6 months of starting pretty much started to dwindle. And by the end of it, I was basically out of pocket and at a loss, operating at a loss. So if I remember correctly, I think I calculate around £5,000 in minus. So having all that money in my account at the beginning of the first 6 months to then suddenly having zero. And when I say zero, I mean zero, literally nothing.
Right. I'm not laughing at you, but I know exactly what you're talking about. I mean, that would be my story, but that would be kind of one of my first devil question, right? I mean, how on earth? Well, I know you started 2019, okay, but still, how, like me? So how on earth in this day and age, meaning in the pandemic situation, which obviously came like 8 months later, right? The super saturated market we have in general, the digital image avalanche we have on Instagram, well, mostly on Instagram or all over the social media. Why should we still decide to go for a full-time photography career? Please give me or give us some words of encouragement.
I think the passion, and I saw the difference the images I create made to the clients that I was working for at the time. And that gave me the drive and to go ahead and try it again. And we will talk about it later on. I'm sure we will. As I'm now another owner of another studio, owner of another studio. I co-own another studio now. But yeah, it's just the drive. I just enjoyed it. I actually love creating something out of nothing, and also love proving my clients wrong, not in a bad way, but many times I will have, and you yourself being a photographer, you will know clients will come to you and say, oh, I need some photos done, but I'm not photogenic. I don't know how to pose. So I found that and as a challenge, which I then accepted. And as I accepted that, I knew I needed to maybe polish up on certain things. So in the meantime, I was actually learning online via YouTube, the likes of Lindsay Adler, Miss Sue Bryce, on how to pose certain people and certain body types,
Right.
get the best out of them. So I knew I had the information that I can use to then make the client look as good as possible, and then given my personality. And I think that's something that really helps my photography and drives my business a lot now, is that I invest a lot of time into getting to knowing the client before we actually start shooting. So that really helped.
Right. I completely understand. But as a advice or encouragement, is passion enough? We're not talking about economics. We're not talking about style or niche or finding your niches, stuff like that. But what is passion enough these days? I know everything is about passion, right? Because we're getting worn out. We have our schedule is not really according to the things we think it would be and stuff like that. What's the base besides tech and learning, education, being outspoken, stuff like that? Is passion the thing?
That's the thing for me. I look at it the same way. I look at it the same way I look at Kobe Bryant. Kobe Bryant was an idol of mine, and his passion and drive for what he did and how he was on a basketball court really, really resonated with me. So that's how I treat it when it comes to my photography, is that I'm very passionate about it. I'm not really bothered of what people say about how my photography look, because I know the work I'm going to be putting in will give me the results that I want to see. And once my clients that paid me for a particular job is happy, then I'm the job is complete. But I put a lot of passion and effort into doing the best job I can for every single client that I've worked with and work with in the future. So for me, passion is enough. If you've got enough passion and drive, you will succeed.
Absolutely. Passion is at least what you need or what one need to get started, right? Sometimes over time, we will talk in a bit about that. We will lose passion because, it's a daily, a weekly, whatever grind and setbacks and stuff like that. Okay, but for you, passion was the thing to actually pursue it. And then you said you're putting or you put your work in it and you don't too much care what people or client think, which is a very nice segue. So a lot of people are, or a lot of photographers are trying to break into a market or in their niche or trying to find their niche, etc. Right? So they're hesitant and they're kind of listening too much with other people's or clients, especially, or potential clients would say. So I'm talking about you. When and how did you realize which market segment would fit you? You know, not the other way around or the other way around. How were you able to attract the specific clientele you have now? So we're talking about portrait people photography, not wedding, which is another segment you're doing, but especially one-on-one client work, right? How did they find you, or how figured you out that's what I actually want to do?
In terms of to answer the first part of your question, how they find me, word of mouth. And that's based
Okay.
on working with close family, friends, relatives. And the word starts to spread that way. That's how I started generating a lot of interest. So even now, my business is primarily built on word of mouth. So the way you treat somebody and the way you treat a client on a photo shoot can ultimately dictate how much jobs you end up getting in the future, because those are the people who you're going to rely on as sort of like marketing, your silent marketeers, to get you more work. So word of mouth was the way I got more clients and more people to be interested in what I was doing.
Right. So these are the super fans, right? These are the kind of the word of mouth, obviously, but these are the super fans. Like they're starting to talk about, they're this getting in circles. You can't even kind of control. Like the opposite if it would go bad, right? So it is
Yeah.
really this kind of, again, it's your passion, I guess. And then something being lucky paired with the results. Not that you don't know what you're doing, but
Yeah.
sometimes the client just needs to be super wowed,
Yes.
correct?
Yeah, 100%. So your job as a photographer is to do that. If you can do that for the client, then the client will, in return, maybe bring you 10 other clients, 10 new clients, 10 new faces through the door. You just got to be able to, when you get that client in front of you, be able to show them the best time ever. And from that would be from the day you plan the shoot all the way down to shoot day and then the final delivery. So if you can show them a really good time throughout the whole process, they would ultimately recommend you to their family, their friends, their close business associates, etc. So for me, focusing on being a really good people person is important as well. As much as having all the gear is good, when it comes to photography, I find that a lot of my work comes from talking to the client and getting the client as relaxed as possible, getting them to be as comfortable in front of the camera, because that's when you're going to get the best images out of them. Because you yourself would know that if you take a photo of someone and they're like they're in the headlights, it translates on camera that they weren't comfortable in front of the camera, they weren't happy, they didn't want to be there. So if you can make your client look as relaxed as possible, that will ultimately get you the results that you need to then drive more business into your more people through the door.
Right. Absolutely. Now we're talking already a bit about the process, but that's really, really, really strongly related to the niche you're or I or we are in, right? So,
Yes.
because that will be one of my later questions, but you already almost answered it, I guess. So, you're an extrovert, right? So, you're not
Yes.
an introvert. Okay. So, that's the complete opposite of me. So, that's cool. So, for you, meeting new people all the time and meeting kind of new situations and getting accustomed to just right away into a new face-on-face situation. So that's in your blood. You like that.
Yeah. Yes, I love that. I enjoyed that because for me, I was brought up to treat everyone equal. So even if I see you on the street and I don't know you, it's one of those things where if I look at you and you smile at me, I'll smile back. And I'll get
Right.
ahead. I'm that type of guy. If I'm in a room And I'm sure a lot of my friends who might be watching this might be able to tell you is that if I'm in a room, say at an event, more than likely you'll find me on the dance floor partying or dancing or trying to get people up to dance. That's the type of person I've always been. I've always been an upbeat type of guy. But we will speak later on how that can also affect you sometimes. And how
Sure, absolutely. But that's a cool keyword, upbeat, right? Because yeah, I get that. I just have to write this down. Sorry. That's really cool. Okay. So, but for you, well, if it's that way, so for you, it was kind of natural that you're kind of falling in this kind of genre for photography. I mean, there's product photography, I don't know, architectural photography, whatever. So not person or people photography. So that would have never been any kind of interest for you, right?
Oh yeah, I did it all. At the beginning, I started off with the family portraits. Then I was doing weddings. I did my first ever wedding back in 2000.
Sure, but not product or so. Always people, right? Not kind of non-people photography.
Oh yeah, I did during the 2020 lockdown. I did do some product stuff, but mainly just for practice purposes in my own home. So you could see some of those images if you were to check out my Instagram my Instagram page, sorry, all the way down. But that was only just for practice purposes, because at the time, obviously, given the lockdown situation, we weren't allowed to go anywhere, weren't allowed to see anybody. So to try and keep myself active and keep myself busy, what I did was just basically picked up household items, like pick up like a can and literally went some photos of it. I tried natural light, I tried flash. So it kind of keeps that creative juice, kept that creative juice going within me for a while. And then soon as the lockdown started easing, that's when I got straight back into the portrait stuff. But it also helped me practicing with something like this, as much as bizarre as it sounds, can also help you when it comes to doing people photography.
We are not sponsored at all by Red Bull, right?
No, no, we're not sponsored.
I had just a glass of water, so yeah, cheers, guys.
Yeah, cheers. But just saying,
right, please.
Yeah, but just saying, it's like the chance that gave me to practice with lighting, that's the main thing. That's what it was. It was about practicing with lighting on different surfaces, understanding how different surfaces work. Because obviously some cans are shiny, some surfaces are matte, some surfaces are plain. There's different surfaces, so that gives me the opportunity to actually practice. I even got into a little bit of property photography as well during the ease of the lockdown. So I ended up buying a lens. A family friend of mine, started his own property business, and I was working with them for a while doing property. So I tried everything and always come back to portraits. Portraits is always the thing.
Okay, but trying in a way of trying to figure out what you love or would you like to do in terms of making money, or trying just to really explore, at least to figure out some aspects of this genre?
Just to figure out some aspects of it and to also keep some money coming in as well. So that was quite key. It's just that I wasn't just doing it because of I just wanted to try it out. I knew I could have at least made some sort of income from it as well. So I gave it the same sort of attention to detail I would with my portrait stuff.
Right. But that is really fantastic, because I just really need to make a small detour about myself, right? So just as a comparison to you, which is really so great. So that's why it's called Compton Goes Pro, right? You're still quite fresh in the whole process of transitioning. Just a little bit about my backstory. So I started people photography like, I don't know, over a decade ago. So then I opened my studio, portrait photo studio, like you, 2019. The pandemic hit. I had to close down because it was unclear what's going on, like, how long and stuff like that, like you. But then we had the lockdown, and I had no motivation anymore. I did not explore anything else, not any can, not any surface, not any nothing, because I was just like, okay, really, like, that's it for now. Let's figure out. Well, thanks God we have now ISO 1200 education. That's what happened
Yeah.
then. But after 10 years, there was kind of no spark or passion anymore, because I just quite lost, like you, investment and dreams and, perspective.
Yeah.
So hypothetically, what would you think? And that's the difference. I'm an introvert, and I am rather on the pessimistic side. So you seems to be the extrovert, and the upbeat guy, right? So
Yeah.
if it would have happened 7 years in, you just would have pulled through, right? You just would not care. Okay, that's the big difference between us.
Well, not to interrupt, I actually
No,
went
please.
through that. I actually, I'm sure we've spoken about this off camera as well. Back in 2020, the first lockdown, when I talked about having to give the studio up, I went through a very bad patch in my life then as well. But I hid it very well for as long as I could. I didn't let my family know about it. I was struggling mentally. It really hit me because I felt like I had failed, as previously spoken about. Like I felt like I had failed and losing the amount of money that I'd lost. I didn't know how I'll be able to explain that to my partner, how I'll be able to tell her that, look, I've just wasted a lot of money doing this. There was just so much uncertainty, like you said, and that really got me in a really bad sort of mood. I basically, at one point, I actually genuinely said, look, I'm going to give up and I'm going to sell all my gear. That's the only way I'm going to get that money back. And it then dawned on me that I am actually physically and mentally struggling, because one day, one evening, the job I used to do, my permanent job, at the time, I'd finish around about 12 a.m. I got home, I sat in my car. This was around February 2020. Sat in my car for over an hour contemplating whether to take my own life, because I had just wasted a lot of time, effort, money, and I've let down a lot of people. And that really, really played on my mind for a good couple hours. And then I finally drum up the courage to actually come in. I woke my partner up and I spoke to her and I said, I don't feel well. And she was asking me like, what do you mean you don't feel well? I said, I don't feel right. And I just broke down into tears. And I had to get help. So I had to go and get help. So I got the help via my local doctor. I had talking therapy for about 5 months every Thursday. And this was happening, and not a single person outside of my household knew about it, because
Right.
I had I've grown to sort of like learn to live with it and keep it in. And only when I really hit a wall, that's when I kind of like broke down. So I had to also drum up the courage to then speak to my mom, because there was external stuff happening as well at the time that kind of influenced that decision in my head. So I had to then speak to her. I spoke to all my other family members, and everyone then showed a lot of support. And that's what kind of got me through it, to know that even though things are bad, there are people there who will always love and care for me, regardless of what I do. If it's if I don't have anything, or if I have a lot of things, there will still be people there for me. So being able to lean on those people and having the support of my family and friends was vital to that process and getting through that phase of my life. And I'm happy that I went through that phase, and I'm happy to now talk about it openly, because I know it can be tough, especially in this industry.
Absolutely.
So,
Thank you so much
sorry,
for sharing.
sorry,
This is
it
really
always,
personal.
yeah, it just brings up some emotion, you see, because I feel like it's still fresh. But yeah,
Well,
that
it
was a
is
very
still
vital,
fresh.
yeah, that was a very vital part of my my journey. And learning to deal with failure. When you talk about dealing with failure yourself, that was how I kind of wanted to deal with it.
Right. And again, thank you very much for sharing, because I had kind of similar experiences, a bit different configuration, but it's, I mean, like probably a lot of us. But and that's the thing. Sometimes we look at it as a failure, right? Or I mean, we failed, but sometimes we just can't influence stuff. So we have actually to try to get through it without blaming ourselves. And I guess that's the hardest part somehow, because we want to do it right? And we want to do it
Yes.
perfect in a way.
Exactly, because again, for me, it wasn't just the fact that I had failed myself; I had failed my family, because I'd sold this idea to my partner that I'm gonna do this and we're gonna make a lot of money from it and we're gonna be financially free. I would be debt free. I wouldn't have to worry about anything. We'll have our nice brand new home. If you give me a year or two to sort of work, I had it all planned out. But then obviously, like you said, society and everything else does not work out exactly how you planned it in your head sometimes. So that's what happened.
Right. And that will be one of my later questions, but let me just make a little detour, sorry. Because there is a saying, like, you have to want it more than anything. So in this kind of situation where I gave up, I closed my studio and I started with Jose together ISO 1200 Education, which is great. Otherwise, we wouldn't see this show now. But you stick to it, right? And you went through. So how much or how willing are you make to do other sacrifices in a way? I'm not talking about personal health, because this is, or mental health, sorry, this is really something, right, that's borderline in a way. But how much willing are you to make sacrifices in order to make whatever you now setting out to go work? Do you have a plan B? Would you have a plan B?
There's no plan B. There's no plan B. If there's a plan B,
I'm sorry. Wrong button. I'm sorry. Wait.
So
yeah, I am.
There's
Yeah,
no plan
please.
B. There's no plan B. The reason being, like, if you have a plan B, when you're doing plan A, at the back of your mind, you will always think, if plan A doesn't work out, I'll just fall back onto plan B. And that will keep pulling you back every single time. So for me, right now, I've tried that process and it just didn't work. So for me now, plan A is plan A and plan A only.
I love that.
No plan B.
I love that.
I just can't be doing it to myself. I've been trying to do this now for coming up to 8 years this year. I cannot keep doing this to myself, saying that, yeah, if this doesn't work out, then I'll just fall back on. I've got a job that I worked for 16 years within the retail industry, which I loved and did love and still do to an extent. That will always take me back tomorrow if I wanted to. But for me, I do not look at that as, oh, I'm gonna do this, and then if it doesn't go back, I know I've got a job. My thing is now, I would love to be a photographer, a full-time photographer, an educator, because I want to share my story and share what I've learned from others with the next generation of creatives. And Manchester as a whole is full in abundance of new up-and-coming creatives, and I want to be part of their process.
Okay, because that would have been one of my questions. A year back, or it's almost already 2 years. So you had a full-time job. Was this like 100%? You're working 100% on a full-time job, and you had your side hustle as a photographer.
Yes.
When you had to close your studio and you failed to let down people.
Yeah. So I was doing my full-time job 5 days a week, and I did photography in between those days, as well as the week, and I did mainly weddings at the weekends.
Okay, I see. So, well, thank you very much for sharing this so openly. And I know it's hard to make a segue and to divert, but let's get into a little bit lighter the next topic, okay? Because we could go on and on with this kind of mental and physical fatigue, because I had the same, and I'm pretty sure we could do a special about that, because there are a lot of people, nothing to do with the what was it, with the pandemic, sorry, but just with how client treats you, how the market is treating you, or stuff like that. But yeah, let's keep this for a special. So please bear with me. Once you realized that you cracked the formula, like you broke into your market, right? So even this was in the beginning, like working for free for models, working your portfolio, stuff like that, which is fine, but that was kind of your jam and your niche you figured out. So how did you actually find your creative style? We're not talking too much about tech and composition, stuff like that, but how did you felt that you feel your creative style within this kind of people photography? I know it was a long way coming towards there, but when did it click for you?
In terms of what I do now, mainly fashion, portrait, and lifestyle stuff, that began around August, September of 2020. And it all started with what I coined at the time, the backyard or back garden photo shoots. So a friend of mine at the time, his girlfriend, who's a signed model, had reached out. She was in town and needed some portfolio updates done. And I knew I had all the gear from obviously the studio, because I had brought everything back home with me, because obviously I needed to bring it back into the house. So I had all the gear here, and the weather was actually quite good. Let's not talk about the weather. That's a different conversation in the UK.
Right.
So what I did, I set up everything outside, and we took some photos, some portraits there, and I then posted some of those images on my social media channel, and it got a really great response from posting those. People were like, "Oh, you've got a studio again," and I was like, "No, it was actually done in my back garden," and they couldn't believe me at the time. So I then decided to keep going with this sort of setup, and I then got in touch with a few more models who were from the same agency, got them to come down, and I kept on doing it. So I was doing at least 2 a week, and that kept me kind of like motivated. And then I saw the what's the word? The word I'm looking for. I saw a change in me. That started becoming more fond of this style of photography. So I then reached out. No, I got the models who were signed, the agency that they were signed with, then reached out to me because they had seen some of the previous images from the previous models and asked if I would be interested in working with some of their models on a paid basis. And I was like, oh, I can get paid for doing this stuff. It's in my garden. I don't have to travel. So yeah, that's where I developed the niche for the style I do now. So I do a little bit of natural light, a little bit of studio, and sometimes I mix the both.
Right. So simplified in a way, right, is you kind of found your basic genre because you upbeat. So you're not afraid. You're extrovert. You're great with face-to-face time and having this kind of attitude that things will be great in front or in between the photographer and the subject. That's the first thing, yes. Right? And then kind of forced by the circumstances, you started to shoot actually outdoor. And there was one kind of a key shot or one kind of a really specific shot that kind of created some spark of great responses, which actually showed you or proved you or encouraged you, whatever you want to call it, into a way for continuing this kind of shoot? We're not talking about setups and outdoor and natural light and stuff like that, but the kind of the way to go, right?
Yes, yeah, 100%.
Okay, so that's a mix between your personality and the kind of a coincidence what happened. So was this a lucky, not punch, I don't know what's in English, was this kind of a lucky combination that it then went into this direction?
I want to say yes, there is an element of luck to it, but also I'm also a proponent of you build your own luck and you create your own luck. So if I didn't physically then go out and find these models and start creating these portraits, then I wouldn't be where I'm at today. So I basically had to go out and create this luck in a way. So I am a big proponent that yes, it could have been a little bit of luck, but I think I created that luck. I'm not trying to be big headed or anything.
Of course.
I'm just a big proponent that you create your own luck.
Yeah, I love that, because without what you have prepared or done before, it wouldn't have happened in your backyard, right? I mean, I get that. I just, the devil's advocate. I just wanted to figure out. Fine. I just wanted to figure out, like, sometimes it really happens that, of course, everything falls in place because we prepared for it, but sometimes it just might not happen. So that's why I'm trying to get a bit in this direction. Cool.
Yeah.
Okay. You talked quickly about it, and let's talk briefly about it. As of today, as you said, you're defining your field of work as lifestyle photography, and off camera I was like surprised, like, okay, lifestyle, for me, lifestyle is food, Instagram, this kind of nice fluffy pictures. We talked about that, but probably let's reiterate why and what do you mean by that, because please expand what lifestyle is for you, because we're talking about the niche, right? And this is how to find your niche. And if you come up like, okay, I do lifestyle, I still guess most of the people do not really understand what you mean by that. Please expand.
Lifestyle for me is, for instance, I work with a lot of models who are or who needs portraits and portfolio done on a regular basis. That's their lifestyle, their models. That's what they do for a job.
Okay.
So that's part of the model side of lifestyle. That's how I differentiate it, lifestyle. I also work with people who own gym brands, which is obviously a lifestyle. I work with people who actually own physical gyms as well. That's another brand of lifestyle photography. So I put that all into my lifestyle package in terms of what I call lifestyle. And then I have the fashion side of things, where fashion can be described into many different genres. There's got e-com fashion, you've got editorial fashion, commercial fashion. But I put myself under that, just the fashion bracket, because I can do a little bit of every bit of that, if that makes sense. So I do a little bit of everything. I also do e-com as well, for a lot of brands in Manchester. So for me, lifestyle is creating images for my clients, who are from different walks of lives, who also take part in different sort of day-to-day activities, and who class themselves what's the word? I'm trying to find the right word to say, because I don't want to sound like
please talk by heart.
Yeah, because I said the reason I say lifestyle when it comes to the model work especially is because these models, they rely on these images to actually put money in their pocket, food on their tables, and clothes on their backs. So it's what I class as a lifestyle. Is like their lifestyle is portraits, nice portraits of themselves, whether that be doing running activities, whether that be in a studio, modeling clothes for a brand. They rely on these things. That's their lifestyle. That's
right.
Lifestyle.
So in a way, to make it a bit more understandable for all of us is, in a way, it's in the grand scheme, it's always kind of portrait photography. I know it's not the classical and the traditional way, obviously, but I explored your work, we talked about your work, and that's why we set up the show, obviously. But it's always kind of related to portrait photography in a way of, it can be for a model portfolio. It could be your client is the agency or the e-com brand or whatever, right? But it's always really related to actually rather the subject and less to the objects, right?
Yes,
I understand, because fashion for us is always like, this high class or high fashion or whatever this is called, and then it's actually about the dresses, the gowns, the accessories, and not really the person in it, except it's a celeb, but that's a completely different genre. So if you say fashion, it's rather leaning towards still kind of portrait work, right?
Yes, portrait work, and doing work for, like, again, models and brands, local brands.
Right.
So, yeah.
Okay. Just to clarify. Okay. Last two quick questions from my side, and we should progress to Q&A. We have quite a few nice questions. We already a bit behind the time, which is fine for me, just for keep it in schedule. Let me see. Right. And this is a shout out to Joe Edelman, because I've just seen it on his Facebook post somewhere. So he's the father of the thought. You started this transitioning, you're doing it full time, right? And you still have your passion, you're upbeat. So my second last question is, aren't you afraid by this kind of turning pro that you will ruin your passion for the photography itself?
In a way, no. I would say no. Personally, I would say no, because I still enjoy it and I love it. And just that love for the craft, and because I'm now focusing as well on teaching and passing on the knowledge that I've gained and I've obtained from being a self-taught photographer. I think that's what keeps the passion and enthusiasm going, to keep going. Sorry.
Right. Devil's advocate. You're already doing teaching. You kind of just started out with photography. Don't get me wrong. This is no insult at all. But obviously, you're already 20 steps or whatever ahead of everybody that's just starting out. So that's what kind of keeps you on the toes, the passion, and sometimes a bit nervous, probably. So, I mean, kind of adrenaline.
The adrenaline to create and to make a difference in someone's life. So I'm more focused now on, I still want to create obviously amazing work for my clients when they do book me, but I also want to be able to now pass on the information that I know and I've learned to someone else. And the reason being, and we'll probably go into it later on, is now that I co-own a studio in Manchester, there's a lot of young up and coming creative that come to the studios that they're not necessarily doing stuff wrong, but I see little things, little nuances mistakes that I made when I was first starting out, that I could potentially help them with, to avoid them making those mistakes repeatedly. So that's why I'm so passionate about it, and I think that's going to always be there if I've got that drive to try and pass on the knowledge and teach somebody else, because I'm a big proponent with the term each one teach one.
Right. And obviously you're already a few steps ahead from people that are just starting out.
Yes.
So making the transition, finding your niche, actually working in your niche, actually earning money in your niche or with your genre, paying your bills, having the life secured for your family, so your partner and your son. So that's already a lot, right? So we don't have to wait 20 years to be some kind of a honorary professor to actually write the book, which is 500 pages long, than to actually
No.
publish something, right?
No.
Right. Cool. Last question. Sorry. I know this was a bit devilish, but that's, people are always like afraid, like, should I talk about stuff which I just did before yesterday? And my kind of answer is obviously depends. But if you feel comfortable and that's something you want to do in the future, yes, please talk about, because there is really somebody out there, or few out there, that did not even took this kind of steps or whatever, right?
Yes.
Okay. Last question. I know you are a confident person, right?
Yeah, mild to moderate.
You will succeed, right? On your way.
Yes.
Okay.
At all costs.
Oh, okay. But we have to reiterate in another episode. At all costs.
Not in a rude or unmannerly way. I mean, like, if I set out, this is what I'm going to succeed in today or next week or next month, I will be driven to go and do that.
Right. So no plan B, as we said before, right?
No plan B.
Okay, cool. Let's switch to the Q&A section. Make this a bit shorter. We have like 4 questions. Let's see how far we go. We already 50 minutes in, but I really want to feed you some questions. We got, no worries. We got by the online form before. So the first question is from Rudy from Miami, Florida, USA. Sorry.
Yep.
To leave your full-time job and become a full-time pro photographer, that's obviously a major decision. What was the deciding factor, or rather, what was the major provocation or impulse that moved you to put in your 2 weeks notice, which means quit your job and going pro? What was kind of probably, I don't know, the last straw?
I must say I haven't full-time quit. I've not fully quit yet. I still do side hustle. So
okay,
still my side hustle. The photography is my full-time job, but the other job is still my side hustle. But what pushed me to actually go for the photography full-time is that I had nothing to lose in terms of where I was with my photography. I knew what I was capable of. I knew the momentum that I'd built up based on the client base that I have and the clients that I was attracting. So I was fully confident that that is going to get me to where I want to be and help me in the process of then transitioning to the teaching part of it as well. So for me, it was that client base that I built up to say that, yeah, your work is good. We love it. We enjoy it. We share it with our family and friends. We share it with our colleagues, and we think that whatever you create for us always brings us a great reward. So that was it, really, to be honest.
Okay. Personal question from my side. What would be kind of your, ratio, the share between, let's just talk about revenue, photography compared, in addition to education? Because education is kind of scalable in a way, not one-on-one as was what you love to do, but what's your target, or what's your ballpark figure, if there's any?
A ballpark figure in terms of
the split 70% studio work, I mean, and portrait, lifestyle photography work, and 30% education, or as a big dream?
Yeah, for now it's currently around about a 80 to 90% portrait fashion work, and about 10%, 10 to 15% of the teaching, because like you said, I'm pretty new into this genre. So I'm still trying to figure out where I want to go with it and where I want to take it. And in terms of, do I want to do it at a much more larger scale, as in, do I want to create online tutorials for people to learn? Do I want to create workshop, which is definitely on the cards? Workshop is the next logical step. So that's something I've already started planning out with my business partner as well. So workshops.
I understand. But you would be able, at every cost, you would be able to make a living as a photographer in Manchester with your lifestyle photography to 100%, if you would like.
Wanted to, yes, if I wanted
to. Right.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So that's a deliberate decision to kind of split your time and passion between education and photography, or I mean the other way around, right?
Yes. Yeah, because it could change at any moment, like we saw with the pandemic.
Right.
It could change at any moment, and being able to teach would allow me the opportunity to create videos and not having to be in a studio with somebody just to show them how to do it. I can create it, put it online, and then sell it on via a website online, So
of course, but you still need your body of work and your credibility and a kind of a few years of credibility of work, right? So yes, that's 100%. What you're already building. Okay.
Yes.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. So second question, please, from Angela, New Jersey, again the USA. Perfect.
Thank you so much.
Yes. Oh yeah. Thank you for all your questions. I'm sorry. The very first episode, a bit nervous. Right. Thank you very much for your question, Rudy. Now it's Angela from New Jersey. Thank you for your question. The question is, what are some steps new photographers can take to narrow down what their niche is? How long did it take you to understand who it was that you wanted to work with, and how did you reach out to them? We touched a little bit, but that's really a very specific question. So
yeah. To respond to the first part of the question, people. I've always been interested in people. So I knew I was always going to be doing people photography as a full-time job, if you can say it that.
Right.
So in terms of how I went about finding those people, again, and we touched on it earlier, it was all done through word of mouth. I've got a fantastic support system around me in terms of client base that I've worked with, and I work with on a repeat basis. So that's how I ended up finding most of my clients. They come and find me via other clients that I've worked with. And what was the last part of the question, if you don't mind me asking again?
Of course. How long did you take to understand actually who it was that you wanted to work with? I mean, that was kind of the first part of the question, right? But how did you reach out to them? I know word of mouth, and was
social media.
Okay.
Social media,
word of mouth, social media, and that kept the ball rolling, or
that kept it rolling. DMing people. The good thing and bad thing about that is that you will have, say you DM 10 people to potentially work with, you might have 8 or 9 responses where they are totally uninterested in what you do, and they don't feel like what you create is what they need for their portfolio.
Right.
So, and then you'll have that one person who will give you an opportunity and give you a shot at creating something for them. So your job then is to then focus on creating something that's out of this world amazing for that one person. And in turn, sooner rather than later, that one will then turn into 2, that will then convert into 3, that will then come, and you keep rolling, and then you will get people. It will then start to flip where people actually DM you,
right,
to actually work with them.
Right. Okay, the snowball effect, right? Keep on it. Keep on it.
Keep going.
Be up. Exactly. Be upbeat. don't have a plan B mentally, and just heads down and keep going.
Yeah, if you believe in what you do, you will, like any sportsman, any person within a certain profession will tell you, if you believe in what you do, you've got to put in the time, the effort, and the energy for it to succeed. If you don't, it's not going to. Like anything in life, if you don't put in the time and effort, it will not go anywhere. You have to physically put in the time. You cannot rely, I cannot personally rely on the people who spread the word for me. I have to keep producing work that will keep that momentum going.
Right.
So
Absolutely.
I don't know if you've ever heard of the term, you're only as good as your last job. Or basically, short answer is, you're only as good as your last shoot when it comes to my work.
Right. Absolutely. So I guess that's kind of a perfect statement for the end of the podcast. We are in 61 minutes. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much, Compton, for this first episode. We will now start to level up and progress these topics, like the phases of your transition, what's the state of today, etc., etc. So this was kind of an introductory, right? So
Yes,
thank you very much for joining us. I have a few last items to talk to you, dear viewer, before we actually conclude this workshop. Let me just, this live broadcast, let me just see what I have to say to you. Yeah, as you see, we still are trying to find the balance of the questions and the moderating talking part. So this is, for both of us, a new format. I feel we already did quite well. We will answer a few more Q&As next time. I just have to try to cut myself down. Please remember to submit for the next, here we go. Please remember to submit the questions for our next episode on the website you see here. We show you here. The new topic will be announced by tomorrow. So the next episode will be in a month. And we both, Compton and I, we hope that you gained some insights, inspiration, and had some fun. And really, really thank you so much for watching, for your time. And Compton, it was really a pleasure having you here.
Thank you very much. And I look forward to seeing you again soon. Take care, guys.
Okay. Thank you, guys. See you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.